There's a plant growing in your garden right now that you've probably never noticed. It's small, low to the ground, easy to miss. If you did notice it, you probably pulled it out. Gardeners do it without thinking. It shows up fast, it spreads faster, and it looks like nothing worth keeping. But here's a question worth asking. What if this tiny weed has been eaten, brewed, and used in traditional medicine for centuries? What if sailors once relied on it to survive? This is chickweed, and it has a story most people who've pulled it out of their garden have never heard. Let's start with what you're actually looking for. Chickweed grows low, often trailing along the ground instead of standing upright. The leaves are small, oval, smooth, and grow in opposite pairs along the stem. The flowers are tiny and white, with 5 petals, but each petal is so deeply split down the middle that it looks like 10. It shows up in gardens, lawns, flower beds, cracks in the pavement, anywhere the soil's been disturbed. Cool, moist weather is when it thrives, which is exactly why it often gets pulled out early in the season, before most other plants have even woken up. Now, here's the identification detail that actually matters. Chickweed has a single line of fine hairs running down one side of its stem. Just one line. Foragers sometimes call it the mohawk. Why does that one detail matter so much? Because chickweed has a lookalike, Scarlet Pimpernel, a plant that grows in the same places, at the same time, with a similar leaf shape, and it's toxic. The differences are there if you know to look. Scarlet Pimpernel has square stems, no hairs at all, and flowers that are orange or reddish pink instead of white. But if you're not paying attention, the resemblance is close enough to cause real problems. This is not a video telling you it's safe to go eat whatever's growing in your yard. It's the opposite. If you can't confidently tell chickweed apart from its lookalikes, don't harvest it. That single line of hairs is the detail that matters most. So why does chickweed grow absolutely everywhere? Partly, it's the cool weather advantage. While most plants are still waiting for spring, chickweed is already growing, which means it gets a head start most competitors don't have. Partly it's speed. Chickweed can go from seed to flowering plant in as little as 5 weeks, producing seeds that scatter easily into any patch of disturbed soil nearby. And partly, it's just indestructible in the right conditions. Cut it back, and it grows again. Pull it, and there are already more seeds in the soil waiting to sprout. The same traits that make gardeners pull it out on sight are exactly the traits that made it one of the most widespread plants on the planet. Here's where the story takes a turn. For most of history, people didn't just tolerate chickweed, they ate it. The young leaves and stems have a mild, slightly sweet flavour, not far from spinach. Traditionally, they were added raw to salads or cooked briefly like a potherb. In Japan, chickweed is actually one of the 7 herbs eaten in a traditional spring dish called Nanakusa no Seku, a festival meal meant to mark the turn of the season. And there's a reason a plant this small became valuable enough to matter. It's a genuinely nutrient-dense little green, traditionally noted for its vitamin C content, along with iron, calcium, and other minerals found in leafy greens. That vitamin C content is exactly why, historically, chickweed had a reputation as a scurvy remedy, something sailors reportedly relied on when fresh citrus wasn't available on long voyages. Beyond the kitchen, chickweed shows up constantly in traditional herbal medicine, and not just in one culture. Practitioners across Europe, Asia, and North America have used it for generations. Herbalists traditionally used chickweed preparations, especially as a topical treatment for itchy or irritated skin, things like insect bites, minor rashes, and small cuts. There are records of it being used for coughs and respiratory complaints too. One 17th century English herbalist even recommended it as a treatment for mange, Notice the phrasing there. Traditionally used, historically recommended, not proven to cure. That distinction actually matters a lot, so let's dig into what's really inside this plant and what science has actually confirmed. Chickweed contains a genuinely interesting mix of compounds, vitamin C for the reasons we already covered, flavonoids, plant compounds associated with antioxidant activity, saponins, which are part of why some traditional preparations focused on the skin, and mucilage, a soothing, gel-like substance similar to what you'd find in aloe. None of that, on its own, proves chickweed treats a disease, but it does explain why this specific weed, out of the thousands of plants growing in a typical backyard, kept showing up in folk medicine across completely unconnected cultures. So, what does actual science say? Here's what we know. Laboratory studies have found that chickweed extracts show measurable anti-inflammatory and antiviral activity, including research showing activity against certain viruses in cell studies. That's real documented lab research. Here's what's been studied but isn't settled. Some studies, done in cells or in animals, have looked at potential liver protective and metabolic effects, promising directions. But animal and cell studies are not the same thing as proof that something works safely in humans. And here's what we don't know yet. There's no significant modern clinical research, meaning actual human trials, confirming most of chickweed's traditional uses. The traditional reputation is old and widespread. The clinical evidence backing it up mostly isn't there yet. That's an important gap. And it's worth pausing on, because this is exactly where the internet tends to get things wrong. Search for chickweed online, and you'll find plenty of pages calling it a detox herb, a weight loss remedy, a cure for practically everything. Most of that traces back to old folklore, repeated so many times online that it starts sounding like established fact. Traditional knowledge and clinical evidence are not the same thing. A remedy being centuries old doesn't automatically mean it's been proven to work. It just means people have believed in it for a long time, which is interesting, but it's not the same as scientific proof. That distinction doesn't make chickweed's history less fascinating. If anything, it makes it more honest. And chickweed's value isn't limited to humans either. Its seeds are a favourite food for finches and other seed-eating birds, which is actually where the name chickweed comes from, since chickens and other poultry are drawn to it too. In gardens and disturbed soil, it often becomes one of the first plants to take hold, feeding early season insects and building the ground back up before larger plants move in. A plant most people see as a nuisance is quietly doing work in the ecosystem most people never think about. Before you go looking for it yourself, a quick and honest safety note. Never eat any wild plant unless you're completely confident in the identification. And with chickweed specifically, that means checking for that single line of hairs on the stem every single time. Avoid plants growing near roads or on lawns that may have been chemically treated. Chickweed can occasionally cause allergic skin reactions in some people, and it's generally advised to avoid it during pregnancy, since there isn't enough safety research there. And as always, herbal remedies are not a substitute for medical treatment. If you're managing a health condition or taking medication, check with a doctor first. So, that small plant in the corner of your garden, the one that shows up before anything else does, the one most people pull without a second thought, it's fed sailors through scurvy. It's shown up in folk medicine on 3 different continents. It's part of a 700-year-old spring festival on the other side of the world. And it's still, quietly, doing work in your garden's ecosystem right now. Not every old remedy holds up under modern science. But the story behind why people trusted this plant for so long, that part's real. There's another plant like this growing somewhere near you right now. One you've probably walked past 100 times without a second glance. Next time, we're going to find out what it's hiding too.